Hey everyone, in this review we're taking a look at the SH Figuarts Kaido from One Piece. This is my wife's action figure. She's a big fan of One Piece, and I haven't seen a ton of One Piece myself. I ended up buying this for her because she doesn't collect a ton of action figures, but she's been getting the One Piece line, and this was one that she probably wasn't going to get herself, just because it was big and a little bit expensive, so I figured I would purchase it for her. When I pre-ordered this, I got it at Kappa Hobby, and it was $215, so not cheap by any means, so hopefully this will be a good one. Here's the box it comes in. It's very large. It's not going to fit on the filming setup, so you get the carpet shots. Here's the side. It says Kaido, King of Beasts. Some poses on the back. I did pose him around a bit. You can't get him in all the poses on the back here, so that's good. Some shots on the side here. It shows the Luffy face and the different Kaido faces. And then on the top it's got the straw hat. I like the way they do the boxes like this with the map and the straw hat for the One Piece line. That's pretty cool. Alright, so here's Kaido out of the package. As you can see, he's a big boy. He's going to be tough to manipulate on the camera. I'm going to try my best though. First, we'll get in there and look at some of the details. Primarily because it's going to be more space efficient to just zoom in there. So for the aesthetics, right off the bat, I think there's something people aren't going to love, which is the Revoltech style shoulder here. See, I've got him in a raised arm pose, and you can see the joint exposed here. And also here a little bit. I'm not super bothered or offended by that, but I also love Revoltech figures, so I'm already a little bit used to that sort of thing. It is a bit more extreme here just because it's so much larger. Either way, that's something to note. You might not like that. When the arms are down though, or when he's in a neutral pose, there's not really any issues with the shoulder joints. So that's just going to be personal preference on whether or not that sort of thing's going to bother you. I think the faces are done well. A lot of nice scales and sculpt going on in the face, which are some pretty small details relative to the figure overall. You can see he's got the ridges for the forehead and little tiny scales. It would have been nice to have a wash on there to make those a little more prominent. The horns look nice. There's a nice sort of gradient going from brown to purple. He's got a lot of hair in the back here. This may end up getting in the way a little bit with posing, but it is on I think it's a ball hinge there. We'll go over that more in the articulation. With the faces, his little mustache tendrils, those don't come on the faces in the package. You have to plug those in. They're a little difficult to smush in there, so I don't think I had that one plugged in all the way, but they're very tiny and do have a tendency to come out. There. His little beard also separate from the face. You have to swap that out for each of the faces. Coming down to the torso, he has paint for the scales on the chest and the shoulder, but that doesn't continue all the way down the arm. I didn't know whether or not it was supposed to. The art my wife showed me, it does have the blue scales coming all the way down, so that could be a disappointing thing. I don't think it looks bad overall though. More paint is always nicer. At the very least, some shading on the scales down the arms would have been nice. One thing I will say, which isn't to try to excuse the lack of paint, but just not knowing anything about the character or what the design's supposed to be or where the paint should be. Having the paint just on the upper torso here does draw your eye up and make him look more muscular up top to me, like it defines the chest and shoulders a little bit more. Whereas I'm just basing it on one photo I saw, but the one photo I saw where it continued down all the way on all the scales without any shading, just the flat colors, I do feel like the design gets a little bit muddy. That's kind of just personal preference. Those are just my thoughts. Objectively, this is just bare plastic on the arms and the back of the hands. So contrasting that with the nice shading on the tum and all the paint here, I wish there was some manner of shading like on the edge of the muscles or something like that. Maybe like Toto had. If you're here for Kaido, you may not watch the Jujutsu Kaisen reviews, but Toto, he's got shading all along the muscles everywhere, even on the arms. Put that on there. That would have been nice. So the shading that's on the torso, though, does look nice. All the muscles here are shaded. He's got the big scar in here, which I don't think the scar is shaded or painted. It kind of just looks like a different colored plastic insert for this, and then this bit looks painted. I'm not sure. Either way, I think it looks pretty good. I don't have any issues with that. The way it's inset, it kind of makes its own shadows in there. I mean, again, more paint would always have been better, but we gotta work with what we got here. A good thing about the arms, despite the lack of paint on the scales, it does have these nice shiny gold bracelets. They're very spiky. They do get in the way a little bit when trying to swap out the hands, because I found that's where I want to grip the forearm to put the hand on. So a little clunky for me. Down at his belt, heavy shading on the top of the belt. I like the way that looks though. Then the purple, not really much going on with the purple here. I mean, there's a nice texture sculpted into it. It's got texture sculpted all into this, but without a wash in there, it kind of gets a little bit lost. Overall, I like the shape that it's sculpted in though. It has a good flow out to the sides. It looks like it's draped well. This center part here with the twists and folds, this looks really nice. It's sculpted well. It's got these little dangly square bits. These aren't super soft, but they're a little bit soft. Then below that we have this pinkish layer. This is a bit of a softer plastic, and it does have some shading in between the folds. And coming down to the hips and legs, there are some gold chains here. These are very shiny, and they look nice. A little clanky though. In the package, these have plastic on them, like a protective plastic sleeve on them to protect the legs from them clashing in transport. There's no paint on the legs, which on the one hand is a bad thing because we want more paint. On the other hand, the chains won't mar up the paint. So I think it's alright though. Overall, my eye isn't drawn to the pants because there's so much more stuff going on here that I can forgive the paint there. For the lower legs and feet, he has the digitigrade legs here. Again, no paint on the scales or shading or anything. It definitely feels a little more noticeable down here to me than the upper torso because it is just pretty bare other than the toes. Otherwise, I mean, the sculpt for the little toe plates looks okay. The black on the toenails is painted pretty well. It does have some gaps where the toes are because they put ball joints here. I don't love that decision. I don't think ball joints were that necessary for the toes. It's a neat idea in theory. In execution, I'm not sure. He's already a pretty heavy figure. I don't believe the character does much stuff with the toes. There's not a lot of toe posing, from my understanding. Maybe this is something they do on their monster arts figures. I'm not sure. I don't have any of those. But it's not bad enough that it gets in the way of posing and things. And I suppose this is a way to have like your toe hinge. So you can pose him up on the toes like this. It's a little unsteady, but I haven't really got him posed up. But you get the idea. I guess that's the one use case there. But they don't really bend forward far enough to really do that. I don't know. I think it's alright. I haven't had them pop off yet. I've heard other people have them pop off a lot. But it's been alright for me so far. For the tail, I've seen some people have had some issues with the tail, either not plugging in or being loose or whatever it is. On this one at least, the tail's fine. It plugs in all the way. You can see it's just about flush to the butt there. It's supposed to have a hinge. Well, it does have a hinge in there, but you can't really use it at all because it's set so far in there and it's plugged so flush to the butt. You can't really do anything with it. But it is pretty snug. And it's got a pretty big peg. You can see there how far it's set in there. I just don't know how you're supposed to use that. And mine plugs in pretty easily. My wife put it on the figure when it came out of the package. She said it wasn't super difficult to get on there though. Just need to wiggle it back and forth and push it in. So for issues with the tail, I think that's just QC issues. It might be on a figure by figure basis. Hopefully if you get this figure, your tail plugs in fine. If it doesn't, I would say heat up the peg hole here with a hair dryer. And then while this is warm, try to wiggle the peg in. So for this, again, we've got some of the scales painted at the top here, and then the rest unpainted. And then the fuzzy bits on top of the tail. I'm not sure if those are painted or a separate plastic piece, because there's a seam there. Either way, it's just solid black. It's not, doesn't have any shading or anything. It's alright. The bottom of the tail is sculpted nicely. And there's some shading in between all these lumps. I think that looks pretty good. There's a joint at each of the little tail segments. They don't do a ton. And then there's a little ball joint at the end here. And that works pretty well for helping the figure stand up. I'll show in the accessories. It does come with a stand, but for a lot of the poses, I haven't needed it just because you can balance him back on the tail. So that's always good with a figure that has a tail. And then his back, after the cape has been taken off, that's just bare plastic. The back of the neck does have some paint on the scales though, but this just bare. Doesn't look great. Once it's covered with the hair, not terrible, I guess. I don't know. Could use some shading. This scale in the center looks kind of weird, right? Just noticing that. Why is the scale shaped different? I don't know. Maybe it's to help the cape sit in there or something. It's got like a ridge in it. Anyway, the cape is another point that I think people may not enjoy for multiple reasons. It's not painted, so it's just the plain purple plastic, which is unfortunate because the sculpt looks really nice. It does look like a very fuzzy cape. It's segmented like a Reveltech cape would be. I accidentally popped that off, but you can see there's a ball hinge there. So you can get some posing out of that. Oh, the boy's falling. Oh, he's falling. He's a dipping. But the main issue is it's really heavy. I'll get out a gram scale and we can see just how heavy it is in a moment. That just plugs onto the back of the figure here. So he's got a hole in the back. It does help a little bit to like counterbalance him for some poses. I feel like a big cloth, like a big soft goods floofy cape would have been better here. That would have been nice. But for the joints, we'll just go through these while we have them. I probably won't keep this on for the articulation. Ball joint on each side, one on the center for moving the bottom, and then one on the center where it pegs into his back, and then ball joints up here. Okay, I got the gram scale out. It's a little dirty because I use it for mixing silicone and resin and stuff. First, for comparison, here is the Luffy figure. Here you can see Luffy is 47 grams. Here is the cape. It's about 460 grams, so rather hefty. And Kaido himself is 971 grams. We'll also get the club in there just so you can see, because it's a little bit hefty. 55 grams. On to articulation. His mustache bits, technically they can swivel, because they're on a little peg. I'm going to take these out, because I think they're going to fall off. One's already fallen off. So those are a little bit annoying. I would say that's the most annoying part for me so far. I have seen a couple other reviews, and they had some issues with the figure falling apart a bit while posing it. I'm not going to attempt to make him fall apart. I'm just going to try to pose him how I normally would and see what happens. I did have one instance when getting him into some of the poses on the back of the box where I think it was this arm came off at the shoulder there, and I just pegged it back in. So at the head, he will look up. First, we're going to hinge the hair up. He can look up this much. And then just at the head joint, he can look down until the beard clashes into the chest. If you go too far, the beard will pop off its little ball peg, it seems. Can look down a ton just at the head. If we use the neck as well, Not the most range looking, up or down. Let's see if we take the beard off, if that's a limitation there, or... No, not really. It's just the ball, I think. Let's see what we got going on. So at the neck, there's a ball hinge, and then a ball that plugs into the body. I would have preferred just a double ball peg. It looks like these little hair pieces on the sides also have a little ball peg. So you can move those a little bit. And then the big hair piece that's on a ball hinge. This hinge on the ball hinged head being really stiff also makes it so it's not gonna rotate the most on its own. You're gonna have to force it a little bit. And then the face being so long, you're not really gonna get much use out of it before the face starts to pop off anyway. He's got swivel in the head, no movement in the neck side to side. If you were to rotate that hinge around, you could maybe get some more side to side lean. That's going to be a bit annoying though. For the shoulders, these are also on a ball hinge going up. I'm going to try to be careful just because I don't want to like clash it into the plastic and scrape it up or anything. So that goes up a little better than horizontal. Again, you get the flat spot on the bottom. Depending on the angle you look at it from, you can see the hinge. And that goes from a peg into the torso to a ball hinge to a ball out here. So you can really get him looking disjointed if you try. But that allows some extra movement on that ball out there. Can reach across the chest. So he'll be able to hold his big club. There is a bicep swivel. Ooh, pretty squeaky. That's gonna be where it might fall off. Like I said, I had one instance where it fell off there. Double jointed elbows that get decent range for how big he is. Those big old muscles, he does kind of clash into himself there. I think that elbow looks pretty nice. The scales are sculpted in there. Not that they're painted, but it is nice that they continue the sculpt in there. At the wrist, big ball hinges, and then the peg that the hands are on is a ball peg, so you get a little bit of nuanced movement there, and then with the ball hinge you can move it however you would like. Not a ton of limitation. It does bump into the scales that come up just a smidge, but not too bad. The hands are a bit of a harder plastic, so some of them I had a little bit of difficulty swapping out. Overall, they're not awful. I've had worse hand swapping experiences. For the torso, I'm gonna say there's a ball peg at the top. Yeah, ball peg at the top. You can't really move him. No. Oh, you can. It's just stiff. Oh, he's a stiff boy. Okay, so you can get him moving forward that much. Maybe it's a hinge even with how stiff it is. And you can get him going. Face fell off. Not very far back. Kind of just straight up. And then a little bit of wiggle. Yeah, that's a ball hinge in there. Because it's stiff to go forward and back and only has a little bit of wiggle side to side. So I'm fairly certain that's a ball hinge in the upper. At the lower, a ball peg. You're going to get most of the articulation on that. So, okay. Okay, now we can get him looking down. We just got to bend him at all the joints. Get out of the way, arm. What the heck? He is unwieldy. My goodness. Decent crunch for how big he is, to be honest. I mean, his pecs are getting pretty close to the belt, so that's decent. Going back, also pretty decent for how big he is. More than I thought. I hadn't really pushed this upper diaphragm joint much before now. So, pleasantly surprised there. Not the ton overall, but also to be expected for a giant figure. He's got the side to side tilt. Can rotate a little bit since he's not perfectly round. It's gonna bump into the belt there and there, but I think that'll be good enough. At the hips, these come out. Oh, he's a heavy boy. This much. They kick forward. This much. Back. Better than a lot of figures. He does have a thigh swivel. I think it's just a single joint. No, technically a double jointed knee that kind of gets single jointed range. Swivel at the digitigrade ankle thing at the bottom of the pant. Swivel there. No hinge at the back of the leg, but that may have caused stability issues. I'm not sure. And then at the feet, these are really stiff, which is good. But just be careful you don't snap anything. They can go back that much. Forward that much, but it's kind of just flat for how his legs are shaped. And then there is an ankle rocker and those ball hinges at each of the toes, so you can get those moving around a little bit. The tail, there's a swivel on the tail. Technically there's a hinge in there. I can't really get the hinge. And then the little hinges at each of the segments on the tail. So you can get a little bit of movement there and the ball peg at the end. So not the best articulation overall, but it's not bad. For how big he is, it's decent. And I didn't really have any parts fall off other than just the face and the hair pieces for me. I think that's also going to be some QC, just depending on how loose your joints are. Hopefully, if you get him, you get a good one that doesn't end up having those issues. My cat's yelling at me. On to accessories, Kaido comes with the angry teeth-gritted face in the package, and then 4 additional faces. The crying face, which might be my favorite, this seductive face, a grinning face, and then a wide open mouth face. All those are done well. They also all have the little ball peg at the bottom to plug in the beard piece. You just swap that out between each of the faces. Along with the faces, there are also these 2 mustache tendril bits, and those will plug into the holes on the face. Like that. So they go into some of the faceplates a little more easily than others. If you have some difficulty, you may need to use some heat to get them in there all the way. They're a little bit fiddly. I don't love this, but it's fine. I see why they did it, because it probably would have been difficult to package each of the faces with the long tendrils, but that would have been preferable if they just each had their own. It also comes with 1 Luffy face with the blank white eyes. This looks pretty good. I'm still not sure how I feel about them packing in basically faceplate DLC with all the characters. I guess it's fine if you're going to end up getting them all anyway, but if there's a particular face you want, but you don't want that figure, it's unfortunate that you have to buy it to get the faceplate. Or I guess you can look at it as a fun add-on. 4 hands, these fist hands come on him in the package. It comes with a pair of open hands. I didn't want to swap all the hands out, so I'm just doing them where they are right now. 1 right pointing hand. This open palmed gripping hand with a square peg hole in it. And that's for holding this gourd. I believe this is for alcohol. And that just pegs in the hand. Like this. And it seems to hold on to the gourd pretty well. He also comes with 2 gripping hands. The left gripping hand has a wider grip than the right gripping hand. This is for the club accessory. Here's his big spiked club. This is similar to Yamato's where the end pops off. And then you can slide on the hand. So the left hand grips further up on it. And the right hand will grip further down. Then you just plug this little pommel in. Like that. And you can hold it with both hands at the same time. And the final accessory is a display stand. This has 5 holes in it for different positions to peg in the little holder. So here's an example of the display stand in use. Here I have it shifted back to the furthest peg hole on one side just to help balance the weight and shift it more back towards the back of the figure. And it holds it up pretty well. So if you try to use this and you can't really get it to stand with certain poses or it's toppling over, you might just need to play with where this stand is pegged in to redistribute the weight. The poses like this, where the weight's out in the front because of the club, it's also a little bit easier to get it balancing if you put the cape on just to counterbalance it and pull it back a little bit. But you can do it without it as well. And also there you can see he can hold the club with 2 hands, so that's good. For sizing comparisons, Kaido is standing at about 10 inches to the top of the head, and then 11 and a quarter-ish to the top of the horns. And with the tail, he's about a foot long or so. Here he is next to the other SH Figuarts One Piece figures. Zoro, Sanji, Luffy, and Yamato. I've heard he's technically supposed to be bigger than this, but Tamashii Nations tends to scale everything towards the middle, so smaller characters get scaled up a little bit and larger characters get scaled down a bit. It seems in line with what they've established they'll do with figures. I don't have something like the Great Ape Vegeta to know if this is bigger or smaller than that, but they may have a limit to how big they want to make figures. I think he looks pretty good with them though. For some other larger figures, here he is next to the Cosmic Legion's Kragnar and Furry Planet Master Wang. For a couple domestic figures, here he is to the NECA Last Ronin Raphael and the Marvel Legends Nightcrawler. Finally, you know we gotta get our boy Suguru in there. Kaido could be a giant curse for Suguru. Please go watch the Suguru Geto review. It's doing terribly. And I like that figure a lot. And all my Jujutsu Kaisen figure videos perform terribly. Go support your boy Suguru Geto. He's a real one. Here he is next to my cat, Porchy. Porchy, come back. Porchy, come back here in the size comparison. Over here. So overall, this one's difficult for me to say whether or not I would recommend it for a few reasons. It's going to depend on if you're a big fan of One Piece and Kaido. You might already know if you're getting the figure or not. If you're a huge One Piece fan collecting everything in the line, then you're probably going to get it. If you're just a casual One Piece fan and you want to get some of the main cast, this one's probably not necessary. I assume they're going to do more villains in the future, right? The other thing with this one is it is pricey. At over $200 at most places, it's a tough sell. And that's even if it was perfect. That's a lot of money. But it does have some flaws. I could see the lack of paint on the arms being a big issue for a lot of people. The tendencies for the mustache bits to fall out a lot. I've heard other people have some issues with the arms or other bits falling off. I haven't really had that much, so I can't speak to how annoying that'll be. I will say in its favor though, it does look cool sitting on a shelf or with the other figures. The shading on the muscles and chest and the torso is doing it a lot of favors since your eye's really drawn to the center of the figure, I feel like. So that combined with the nice gradient on the horns and the airbrushing on that built piece in the center, it does look really nice just at a glance. Plus it's got the cool shiny metal chains hanging off and the shiny gold accents on the wrists. So visually it does look nice if you're not trying to be critical and really analyze what's wrong with it. Another factor may be if you really don't like the shoulders. Like I said before, I don't mind them that much. I like Rebel Tech figures, so I'm kind of used to this situation. I'm more concerned with being able to get it into a pose that I'd like, and so far I can get into some alright poses. It's a lot of big figures are going to be limited just because of the chonkiness, and this one's no exception to that. Would I like it to pose better? Yeah, but I also have to accept that it's not Spider-Man, so it's not gonna get the crazy agile poses. So in the end, I think it looks cool. My wife likes it. I'm happy I got it for her. It's tough to say that I would recommend it without caveats. So I hope this helped you decide if this is a figure you're gonna pick up. If you are, let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.